when you've talked about your defense, kind of big picture, and when people ask, especially ask about the defensive line, you've made the comment that we're a defensive line driven defense. And I've heard you say that multiple times now. Can you explain, Coach, kind of what that means and what does that look like? Practically speaking, what does that look like?
Yeah, I was just talking about this with the D staff, and that in all the years of either being a coordinator or coaching football, the most successful defense I've been a part of, it was because we had a really good D line. And that's what I want our guys to understand is that our D line can erase a lot of mistakes from guys behind them. There can be a wide open receiver, there can be a hole that all of a sudden this D lineman makes a play, and it's like, oh man, look at this great defensive call. No, it's just a D lineman whooping somebody's tail. And as long we are deep at D-line here, and I believe that that's probably the strongest unit we have on our defense right now. And it's for sure the most experienced unit. And with a strong D-line, I believe the guys behind them have opportunities to catch up to that talent level or catch up to that experience level. And we will always be a D-line driven program and a D-line driven defense, and that's going to be what we hang our hat on.
Two guys I wanted to ask you about. That one is Jayson Ademilola, obviously a guy that's been sort of a rotation player. As you look for, guys that can win those one-on-one matchups, what's your message to him been as far as what kind of player he can be in that kind of role and what kind of expectations there are for him in that position also to say, look, because this is what I've always felt like. The guys that are closest to the quarterback are the dudes in the middle, right? And with the the advent of quick game and things like that, if you can get pressure right up the middle, it's going to be real disruptive against the run and the pass. He's a guy that can kind of be that. What's your thoughts on? That's my impression. What is your thoughts on him? What is your expectation of him, and kind of what's your message been to him as he steps into a more prominent role this year, or is pushing to step into a more prominent role, I should say?
Yeah, Jayson had an unbelievable spring. And I didn't know much about him. I mean, again, you watch a little bit of film, you watch last year's film, and he sticks out. I mean, he's a guy that was productive when he was on the field, and he's a guy that plays at a high level. And the most impressive thing I loved about Jayson from the 15 practice spring is the effort that he practices with. And there's no wonder you see some of those plays in the game where he's chasing the guy from Florida State down, he does a helicopter. He does that in practice. And so, again, he's going to have a prominent role on this defense, and he's going to be a huge reason why we have success. And I don't know how many plays he's going to play. I don't care if it's 30, 40, whatever we need. But we just want to make sure those plays that he's in the game, that he's playing at a high level, and that comes from preparing at a high level.
I think a guy on the defensive line that is a bit of an enigma at this point in time, maybe that might not be the right word, but that's Isaiah Foskey. Because if you're talking about, okay, I'm going to draw up a lineman in a lab. He's going to be about 6'5", 250, really long arms and really athletic. Oh, that kind of fits Isaiah Foskey. But he's also a guy that really, until Notre Dame convinced him to play D-line, was a guy that people thought was going to be a tight end. So he's still an evolving guy. Have you seen any growth from him from kind of day one to now? And what are the areas that he needs to continue to grow to turn that potential into production?
Yeah. Foskey's probably one of maybe two players that had the biggest growth from the start of spring practice to the end of spring practice. And it's again, he's a guy with super high expectations. And probably one of the big reasons is because of the way he looks. I mean, he looks like a Greek god. I mean, it's unbelievable. You sculptured an actual perfect defensive end for what we're asking him to do. And so he's continuing to – he's been here for a couple years, but he hasn't had a whole bunch of game reps. I don't consider him a veteran. And so I know Elston's been working extremely hard with him on the technique aspect of playing defensive line. He's still relatively new, as you said, to the position and still learning. But all the tools are there, and now it's our job to continue to develop him, right? If you don't have the tools, well, it's hard to develop. You know what I mean? He has the tools that are being developed, and he's done tremendous in 15 practices. And I expect a lot of production, a lot of great things out of him coming this season.
We've all seen Myron Tagovailoa as a 3 technique. We know what he can do. He's been playing since his freshman year back in 2017. What was the adjustment like for him moving from 3 technique? Obviously, his body looks different now, right? So you're able to kind of maybe take off some pounds that he had a hard time keeping on anyway. but he's going to look physically a little different. But how was the transition for him playing further away from the ball, playing on the edge, those kind of things from him this spring? And what role do you see him playing for your defense this year?
Yeah, I don't have a whole bunch to compare him off of, right? I wasn't here last year in those years that he played D tackle. I've watched film, but there's only so much value you put in the film versus what you see live. And what I've seen live is a dominant defensive end. In 15 practice, he's been dominant, he's been disruptive, and has done an unbelievable job. And that's my expectation for a guy that's a returning starter. And so I think he's going to have a great year. The transition's been really good. He looks good. He's been playing fast. He's been working his tail off. And it's exciting to see what he's going to do at this new position. But again, only the only judgments I get to make is from the 15 practices I've seen him live, and that's what I know him as. I know him as a defensive end, and I know him as a guy that you can move to tackle. You can move him inside, outside, do some different things. So teams don't always know where he's going to be, but he's been disruptive and dominant.